Hi friends, so many people make sacrifices to lose weight, but it's usually not sustainable and they gain it right back as soon as they go off. I'm going to tell you a fascinating story about a patient named Angus Barbieri who did the impossible. He lost 275 pounds and he kept it off. Actually, how he lost weight is even more impressive. In 1965, Angus was 27 years old and he was fed up and frustrated with his weight. He wanted to be under 180 pounds, but he weighed 456 pounds. Like many people, he didn't know which diet or weight loss regimen would be best, or if there was even medicine to help. So he asked his doctors to help him. What do you think they recommended? Ketogenic diet, low carb diet, low calorie diet, or going vegetarian? Or maybe they made him spend all day exercising like the Biggest Losers? Well, they actually decided on no diet and no exercise. They literally had him fast. In the 1950s and 60s, fasting was a novel way to lose weight and cure obesity. And amazingly, he agreed. He quit his job and he stayed home the entire time. Now, I'm going to tell you how he did it, what happened to his health during fasting, and what happened to him afterwards. When he began fasting, the rules were he could consume no solid or liquid food, but was allowed calorie-free liquids such as water, coffee, tea ad libitum, which means he can drink as much as he wanted. Medical fasting to this extreme would be unethical today because it's basically starving people. But without medical supervision, it would have been impossible for Angus to do because people didn't make it more than a few weeks when they didn't eat. And this fact has been shown by many prisoners who embark on fatal hunger strikes. So how did his doctors help Angus survive 382 days without eating? Well, first, they monitored his blood work and gave him a bunch of targeted supplements to replenish essential nutrients. Now, today we know there are 44 essential vitamins and minerals and amino acids. And these are the most important, more so than your proteins, carbs, and fats that you eat, because they allow your body to use the protein, carbs, and fats for energy. The protein, carbs, and fats are like cars in a parking lot. Without the keys, you can't start any of the cars. So if you only eat proteins and carbs and fats, and you don't have the essential vitamins or minerals, you're missing the critical keys to start the cars. And this also happens when you're eating empty calories. And in the end, you'll get tired, sick, and ultimately reduce your lifespan. And when you skip meals, for whatever reason, you will first use up your glucose stores called glycogen. You will always need some glucose. Your brain and red blood cells would die without some low amount of glucose. And even when you are eating a ketogenic diet for years, your body will still make some glucose, which can be formed from breaking down glycogen stored in your liver and muscles. This process is called glycogenolysis, but it's limited and you'll run out of glycogen stores in about 24 hours. The thing is, glucose can also be made from proteins and fats. And after glycogen, your body will break down your own muscle tissues to make glucose, and this is called gluconeogenesis. And this is bad for many reasons. Number one, your muscles, besides allowing you to stand up and to be mobile and to be stable, are organs that keep you metabolically healthy, balance your electrolytes, regulate your glucose that circulates in your blood. It regulates your temperature, allows you to see, to breathe, to digest food, to defecate, and to urinate waste. The last thing you want to do is lose muscle. And this is why when you're sick and when you don't eat, you lose muscle weight, you get weaker, you get leg swelling, you get pneumonias, you have problems sitting, standing, eating, pooping, and peeing. Because they're so sick, they're either not hungry or they lose their ability to swallow. And when you're under extreme mental and physical stress, let's say you undergo surgery or are hospitalized in the intensive care unit, you actually lose 2.2 pounds of muscle every single day. If you are 150 pounds, your bicep weighs, let's say 8 pounds, that's a quarter of the weight of your biceps. And this is why when people are hospitalized, they shrink and they have a difficult time recovering. And this is also why hospitals and nursing homes exist to support patients who are ill. But this is a wrong way to lose weight. And you don't want to lose your muscle weight. But when you're on a prolonged fasting diet, really anything beyond a day, or a ketogenic diet, or when you get really sick, you're going to lose muscle. And you can actually measure how much your muscle shrinks with a tape measure around your calves. And this is why I'm not an advocate of prolonged fasting or intermittent fasting or eating a ketogenic diet, because by tricking your body into fasting, you create other problems. And another problem is, as you age, you will naturally lose muscle mass. So why would anyone want to speed this process up? Don't you think it's weird that your body would want to self-destruct and break down your own muscle? Actually, it's in salvation mode and it's trying to get you to survive. Now, the thing is, you need energy. And if you're eating in food, it doesn't have to break down your own energy reserves. But the second part is that your immune system and the rest of your body needs peptides, antibodies, and cytokines to talk to each other and to keep you alive. These are all made out of proteins, which you have in your muscles. So when you're not eating, your body is preparing for a battle. It thinks it's stressed and something bad is going to happen. And this is why third world countries have a higher mortality rate with infectious diseases, because their people can be so malnourished. So this illustrates why fasting, reducing the wrong calories, or restricting the wrong foods when you diet, whether it's short-term or long-term, can be very unhealthy. And if you're not supplementing your body with essential micronutrients, which are the key vitamins and minerals your body needs daily, when you cut calories, you're basically cutting access to those ingredients. Your body will suffer when it's stressed. And whether you're starving, fasting, eating less food, or not eating the right foods, or simply deficient in one or more of the essential nutrients, you will make yourself more unhealthy, and hence your body will reject whatever state you're in and reject that weight loss. And as soon as you stop eating, there is a time to reach empty for each of these essential nutrients. And when you're starving or fasting, you get to empty faster. And the first essential nutrient that would be exhausted is called vitamin B1 Thiamine. And that vitamin is necessary for energy, focus, decision-making, metabolism, immunity, basically life. So even if you have no access to calorie like Angus, taking the right supplements can power your metabolism to survive. And it's fascinating to me that so many social media influencers claim to be experts on fasting, giving you guidance on how to not eat, but don't mention any essential nutrients to supplement. And I don't think fasting is healthy, but it's an ancient practice of medicine since the 5th century BC as a method to cure obesity and malignant hypertension before gastric bypass, Ozempic medications, and blood pressure medications. However, it doesn't mean people are better off. Some have had fatal outcomes. So the media, they want you to believe it's a novel medical treatment, it's newly discovered technique, but now you know the truth. And you may be wondering what happens inside the body when you do a prolonged fast. So let's take a look at Angus's blood work. And before we dive into that, I want to remind you that in medicine, we have to look at several different clues to come to the conclusion of your health status. And usually one marker, let's say weight, it doesn't give us the whole picture, the whole story. It's all relative. So someone who is normal weight can have metastatic cancer and die in a month, whereas someone who is morbidly obese can live for decades. This is true also for blood glucose. It's an imperfect marker of inflammation, and many people misunderstand it. When you fast, you lose weight, and your blood sugar will go down. And I explained earlier why it drops, because you don't have stores of sugar for more than 24 hours. And many people know that high blood sugar is bad. Well, really low blood sugar can be bad. And I agree that, this is a rough marker of how your type 2 diabetes is doing, but it's not the greatest marker. High glucose, yes, it is a symptom of poorly controlled diabetes, just like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, kidney failure, and blindness. There are markers of inflammation, downstream consequences of diabetes. But focusing on lowering your blood sugar doesn't actually prevent high blood pressure, kidney failure, or amputations or blindness, unless you address the root cause, which is the underlying inflammation that happens to your liver, to your fat cells, and your muscle cells. This is why when you take more medicines like insulin, you're actually not getting healthier, even though your sugar may be better controlled. People who are on high doses of insulin actually get sicker and sicker, and this is because insulin is an inflammatory substance. It actually causes inflammation in your blood vessels. Type 2 diabetes is really caused by inflammation, a form of insulin desensitization or insulin resistance. How do you get desensitized to insulin? Well, that's the root cause, and that is inflammation. Inflammation that happens in your liver, in your muscle cells, caused by fat. Fat gets embedded in your liver and muscles and prevents those organs from working. Have you heard of fatty liver? Well, if you've ever eaten a marbleized piece of meat, you know it's tasty. But imagine if that meat was on you, if that was your biceps or your triceps, you're not going to function too well. You're not only going to be weaker, but your metabolism will be weaker. It's going to be insulin resistant. And I explained earlier why your muscles are critical for your metabolism as a buffer for your health to really help out your liver. And there's several ways to gunk up your muscles with fat. You can simply overeat any calories or drink a lot of alcohol. And the quickest way to do that is to eat a lot of fat. And you do that by eating pure fat or you eat animal products. Another way to do this is to liquefy your food. So if you're eating like lots of olive oil or you're drinking lots of sugar, high in calories, especially those coffee drinks with high in sugar, high in fat, I mean, you've made yourself a recipe to pick up a lot of weight very quickly, become insulin resistant because you're storing those calories in your muscle tissue. And this is why people who depend on a chronic liquid diet, basically tube feeds or on total parental nutrition where we hook them up to an IV nutrition, they actually get insulin resistant and they get fatty livers. So don't give yourself processed foods, things like hamburgers, hot dogs, breads, French fries, pizzas, fried chicken, cereals, crackers, cakes, chips, cookies. They're all great ways to damage your body, damage your liver and muscle, and pick up a lot of fat, turn healthy, normal muscle tissue into marbleized muscle. Now, once you avoid processed foods, your liver and muscle can actually recover within days, or I should say begin to recover within days, as long as you don't hit the point of no return. And there is a point of no return with your liver. It's called cirrhosis. It's when the liver hardens from all the scar tissue that develops from inflammation. But, it takes several years to get to that point. And before you even become a diabetic, you're going to have elevated glucose levels. And before you have elevated glucose levels, you're going to have elevated insulin levels. Ultimately, when you see a doctor, they're going to check a hemoglobin A1c and notice that it'll be high. And that tells you you've been like this for probably quite some time. I would say a matter of months to potentially years. And this is happening in you silently, right? You have silent inflammation. And so lots of markers can go wrong even though you have normal blood glucose. And this is why you can't just look at one marker to determine whether or not a person is healthy. So now that you understand blood glucose, let's look at Angus's blood glucose levels, which we expect to be low, and it is low. But remember, it doesn't mean he's healthier. It just means he has lower blood glucose, which is just one marker of inflammation. And as I mentioned, any diet that lowers your blood glucose may not lower your inflammation. And obviously, not eating is a great way to lower blood glucose, but it's not exactly a healthy, sustainable diet. So let's look at another marker of inflammation, uric acid, which is really a waste product of metabolism. And you may have heard of uric acid causing gout and kidney stones. High uric acid is associated with high blood sugar, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver, kidney disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and early death. Like weight, uric acid is an imperfect marker of inflammation. So even when you don't have gout or kidney stones. People can have normal uric acid levels and have kidney stones. They can have normal uric acid levels and have gout. Really, only about a third of people with high uric acid have gout. But like everything else, just because you're normal doesn't mean you're not inflamed, but you really want to achieve a normal level, right? Just like blood sugar. Certain foods will elevate your uric acid, especially those high in purine. And those foods are really densely packed foods that have a lot of cells. So this would be organ meats and small creatures such as anchovies, seafood, or even drinking beer because it's made out of yeast. And you may not eat any of those foods, just like Angus, and have high uric acid levels. But if you're consuming sugar, you can actually make your own uric acid from sugar, especially from fructose, like fruit juices, sodas. It's in processed foods and sauces and breads, in pizza, it's in junk food. So be careful that you're not eating a lot of sugar, especially hidden sugars. Now, Angus, he didn't eat any calories at all, so that's not how he got high uric acid levels. And his was really high. And it's been observed that people who fast can actually get double-digit uric acid levels, which is not actually healthy. And just because you don't get gout doesn't mean you're scot-free. So why does your body's uric acid go up when you're fasting? Well, it's simply because your body feeds on itself. It breaks down your own tissue. And the problem with uric acid is that it can lump together to form tiny needle-like crystals. And then that lumps together to form larger stones. Imagine falling on a cactus. I mean, that hurts. So imagine now a piece of that cactus floating in your bloodstream, scraping by any tissue or organ, especially your kidneys. I mean, you better bet that that's going to be a lot of damage. Now, your kidney filters your blood, so that's where you're going to have the highest collection. When you starve or fast, for any reason, the kidneys will suffer. And even if you're drinking a lot, staying well hydrated, and urinating. And when your kidneys suffer, the kidney function will decline, and we can measure that with a blood test called a chemistry test. So I think fasting is harmful just because of this reason, and it shouldn't be acceptable just because you're not getting a gouty attack during fasting. This silent inflammation can potentially shave years off of your health and longevity. Once you lose your kidneys, will be glued to a machine, if not every day, you're gonna go 3 times a week. And unfortunately, this is like the organ people tend to overlook just because you have 2. But, 2 in the same environment will suffer double the damage. Both of them together filters your blood like 300 times to remove all the toxins and to be able to circulate things and get things going so you don't form clots. And it's actually the first organ you sacrifice during stress. Your body actually chooses it to be sacrificed because, everything is supposed to support your brain, your heart, and your lungs. But just because, you don't immediately die from losing your kidneys doesn't mean you're not going to die like soon. Think about a fish filter getting clogged up. First you'll notice that the fish tank will get cloudy, and eventually some fish will go belly up. So whether you starve or fast, have severe illness like sepsis, doing extreme exercise like the Biggest Losers, or eat a poor diet full of empty calories with high sugar, processed foods, or high in meat, this will all increase your uric acid level in your body, potentially causing kidney damage that may be irreversible. And when your kidney fails, you may still pee, but you may not be removing toxins, and you may be losing vital proteins and blood cells. You see the problem? Your kidney function is vital to your health. And so if we take a look at Angus's kidney function, his creatinine went from 1 to 2, which is really, really bad. Basically, he went from a normal kidney to stage 3 kidney disease. Your creatinine is a marker of your health, and we can calculate your filtration rate of your kidneys by using your creatinine, your age, your sex, and your weight to estimate how good your kidneys are filtering. So after his fasting diet, he had stage 3 kidney disease, and his doctors thought that that was okay. And this happened under medical supervision. this would not be okay today. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster. I remember, it wasn't because he was dehydrated. I mean, they saw him and they checked him out and they allowed him to drink. It must have been the fasting process. And he also didn't do calories in his drink, so he wasn't drinking sugar water, and he didn't drink artificial drinks either. And this is why today, this experiment that they did with Angus would not be ethical. There are so much healthier ways to naturally lose weight. To really, number one is get healthy. And when you get healthy, the weight will naturally just come off. So don't fall prey to gimmicks, whether it's, fasting, some diet drugs, some radical surgery. These are all ways in which you may be trading off, sacrificing your health for short-term gains. So let's look at another critical nutrient, magnesium. And for some reason, his doctors measured it, but they didn't replace his magnesium, even though it was dropping. And his magnesium fell within the first 100 days. Magnesium is an essential mineral that you need, and it's involved in over 300 different enzymatic pathways. It is critical for your health, for your kidney function, for your muscle function. It gives you energy, regulates your blood sugar, regulates your blood pressure. It allows your muscles to contract and your nervous system to be healthy. It prevents cramps. It allows your heart to beat. This is such a vital mineral. And it's incredible that they just watched it drop over time. And after 100 days, he began to urinate it out. And we know that 50% of Americans, they don't get enough magnesium either, and they're not even fasting. Magnesium is found in plant foods. You can even take it as a supplement. Angus's doctors, they really should have given some supplements and not just watch his magnesium drop. Now, the other thing that Angus's body was doing is that it was spilling a lot of calcium as well as phosphate, and which is initially from muscle tissue, but then likely from bone. This sounds like a recipe for calcium phosphate stones. Unfortunately, he didn't have any imaging studies, so I don't really know if he formed stones, but we do know certain diets, like ketogenic diets, will increase your risk of kidney stones. But unlike many people who yo-yo with fad diets, Angus actually stayed under 200 pounds after he finished his fasting. And that was for the rest of his life. It could be that his palate changed, so his food choices were better. It could be that his stomach shrank and his hormones all reset as well. It's hard to know since I couldn't find any further publications about his medical condition. But I can tell you how long he lived. And this will probably surprise you. He died at 51. He only survived 24 years after he ended his fasting. Now, I couldn't find the cause of death, but people with stage 3 kidney disease have a higher mortality rate. Now, I think you can see the mounting evidence that your health will suffer if you fast incorrectly. Fasting from calories is not the only issue. It's the toxins that are made when you fast and the micronutrients that are missing during your fast, which together causes silent inflammation. And this inflammation can damage your organs. When your body is inflamed, it goes into survival mode, and you then trade off longevity for short-term gains. But if you really want to fast, please see a trained medical doctor to help you through it and to get some supplements. Even if you don't purposely fast and you're simply skipping meals, or you're eating a lot of processed foods, or you live a stressful life, you should consider supplementing. Now, I know it's really complex to figure out which nutrients to combine so that you can achieve optimal health and reduce your inflammation. And honestly, in 2020, I thought about this even more because I was working long, hard hours in the hospital, unable to access food, being inundated with work and inundated with personal calls about what to take and how much to take. And I knew I needed more support for my body, and I needed more vitamins and minerals and other nutrients because I was working such long hours. I had a mask on and I simply had no access or ability to eat. But I didn't want my health to suffer because I had to get up every day to go to work. And so I supplemented, and I did it with like over 20 different nutrients because my body needed that. But it was so difficult to swallow. I tried to share this recipe with my friends and family. It was just so cumbersome to find reliable nutrients. And so that's why I got together with my best friend, Dr. Lisa Ma. She and I, we started a nutrition company, and initially we made it to support healthcare workers and their immune system. And ultimately we decided to launch it, call it NACPro Plus, and make it available to everyone. It combined 22 of our favorite vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients in one packet to make it convenient so that I wouldn't have to swallow all these different pills. And this is what I still take daily. And depending on my stress in life, I sometimes increase it to 4 packets a day. If you want to learn more about our story, I place a link in the description below.